It's a great time to talk about marketing, get to that kind of quarter one, quarter two stage of the year, and people start thinking about, oh, maybe we're going to pivot a few things. What we've planned for as our New Year's resolution of January isn't quite working, and now it's kind of time to just pivot a little bit. We've got 3 months until the financial year ends, and then we've got to start getting some real plans going. Mm-hmm. So what better time to talk about marketing?
Well, that's it. And I do feel like, the timing is always interesting. The quarters, right? Everyone starts freaking out because you're like, got to get so many sales in before the end of the financial year. And then if you do close everything out, especially in B2B, what happens in the next, in the first quarter for next year if you've got nothing in the pipeline? So This is like, this is the moment where everyone starts to really think about, what are we doing?
So what question are people not asking, do you think? What brands in particular, B2B, B2C, doesn't matter. What question are they not asking when it comes to their marketing?
I think a lot of the time they're not asking what's really working, right? So it's pretty common. There's a lot of activity and marketing teams are just, helter-skelter all the time, doing things, getting things out, content, but then actually stopping and looking at and saying, what part of this is driving our business forward? And is this all working towards an actual goal, or did we just start doing this and it's been handed down and we're still doing it just because that's what we do? So I think that's a really important question, is to actually take that step back and say, what's working, what's not working.
So when it comes to that goal side of things, mm-hmm. do you think a lot of the time the brands have got an eye on the wrong goal? So I'll phrase that in the way of saying, particularly you see social media, people get really caught up on the metrics of social media. Mm-hmm. But in reality, that's not the real aim. The real aim is, how does that actually translate back to your business, your revenue, your sales, whatever that may be. So people focus on kind of the wrong goal, do you think?
I think yes and no. I think maybe articulating the goals is still where things fall apart. The goal is kind of always the same thing in some form or another. It's usually more sales or leads. It's very rarely anything different than that. Okay, there are exceptions to that rule, but for the most part, that's what your goal really is. But the missing part of that is what you're going to do to achieve it, right? Are you going to do something different? Because if you're not going to change something or try something new, you're basically all just agreeing to want something. And that's lovely, but it's probably not going to really drive the business. And then as well, how do you measure those tactics? Like you were saying, you get so many metrics, there's data everywhere, right? You get so excited about, wow, look at all these impressions that we got on social media. And you're right, is that actually doing anything? Is there a purpose to that? Or is that just a nice shiny number that looks good on a dashboard? So yes, there is really important distinctions there. And I think the metrics in particular are quite interesting. I always find them quite funny because you have, what are you going to do with those numbers, right? So you have all these beautiful numbers, and then what do you do with them? What does that tell you? What decision does that change? Do you know? So there's a whole piece behind that as well that, you can just look at them. That's great. But then what do we do with them as well?
Do with it? Yeah. I think that's where a lot of brands get it wrong, particularly on the social media side of things. They see the views, the followers, but they don't know what that means. Mm-hmm. For me, the best metric that you can see on social media dashboards is the audience side of it. So what gender, what age range, what city, what country. Mm-hmm. If you're a little cafe in Mornington and your top viewership is from Sydney, what point does that serve you? They're not going to come down. It's very, very, very rare that someone's going to fly down from Sydney.
I've got to go to this cafe.
And then they'll fly back the same day. It's pretty rare.
Yeah, someone has to have a lot of time and money to do that kind of thing. You're absolutely right. Your audience is very tricky on social media, right? It's a wide platform and you can narrow it down to a certain degree, but also it travels, it does its own thing. It's very organic in a lot of ways. So yes, you're right. If you're looking at that and you're not assessing where your audience is and how are they a potential buyer, do they fit into your ideal customer profile in any sort of way, then yes, again, you're just doing things for the sake of doing things. And it's kind of a bit soul destroying for the marketing teams as well, right? Because they end up in this loop of reporting on things and doing things and feeling like they're not making any real difference. And that's quite, that's quite upsetting when you're working really, really hard.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Nothing worse than looking back 6 months and you've realised there's been no progression in anything.
no, we've made no more sales. We haven't filled the pipeline. We haven't grown an audience in any significant way. So what have we done for the last 6 months? And yeah, I think it's not necessarily their fault. It's just you get stuck in that loop and you have to really take that step back sometimes and be brutally honest with yourself. And that's a really hard thing to do because you have been working so hard. You have to actually say, it didn't really work. No one likes that feeling, but it is really necessary.
You've got to be honest.
You really do, yeah.
You used a word earlier, a term. You said tactic. Mm-hmm. So what's the difference between a marketing tactic and a marketing strategy? Because they're similar but very distinct at the same time.
They are. They're very two different things. So for me, marketing always has 3 parts, right? So I call it a 3-act set, right? You start at the beginning and that's your insights, and you need those. You have to understand your audience, like you were saying, where they are, who they are, what they care about, why they're buying things. And then that feeds your strategy, right? And your strategy is the who you're for, who you're not for, what you're going to say, how you're going to say it, where you're going to say it. Those things are all tied into your strategy. So it's quite high level. And then the third part is your tactics. And that's the actual things you're going to do, the creative you're going to do, the social posts, the ads, flyers, the events, all those things fall into sort of tactics, right? So your insights feed your strategy. Your strategy drives your tactics, and then your tactics feed back into your insights, right? So it's kind of like a loop, and you really need all of those things working together to have long-term success with marketing.
So the tactic is very much the final action.
After
you've done all the other thinking, that you gather the insights, who you're targeting and why you're targeting them, which is that strategy component. Mm-hmm. And then finally, okay, we know all of this, and now let's actually hit them through these measures.
Yes, that's the things you're going to do. It's almost like the to-do list. And there is, you can have a marketing strategy and you still need a marketing plan, right? Those are 2 different things. Go-to-market planning for the tactics is quite tricky and probably underrated as a skill set. And the 2 kind of work hand in hand together. And I think that's a really common misconception as well. Someone goes, yeah, we've got a marketing plan. It's like, do you? Do you have a strategy, or do you have a plan, or do you have both?
So what's that difference? What's the key difference there?
The key difference is one is the who, what, where, and the other is we are doing this today or this quarter or this month. These are the actual things we're doing. We have an event this day, so we need to lead up to it here, or we're launching a newsletter, so we need to build the audience here. Those sorts of things where it becomes a very real execution of the plan.
Sure.
Basically.
Sure.
Yeah.
So the plan sits at the highest level, then the strategy, and then the tactics.
The strategy, plan,
then the plan,
then the
tactics.
Yeah, the tactics are, and quite often the person who's executing the tactics will build the plan, right? Sure. They're the ones who will say, okay, this is how long something takes to do, where it all gets very realistic and the budget meets the plan, kind of all comes together. You've got a budget, you've got an amount of resources, you've got only so many people, you've only got so many hours a day, and tying that all together, because people are quite funny as well. We really overestimate what we can achieve in a day a lot of the time.
Big time.
I think we're all guilty of this.
Yes.
Like, I can do all these things today, and then you realise you just can't. But then we really underestimate what we can achieve in 12 months, in a year, right? So if you actually plan that out properly, you will find you get to the end of that 6 months or 12 months and you look back and you go, great, look what we achieved, rather than that feeling of, what did we actually do for the last 6 months? Yeah, I was so busy. I haven't had a time to look at anything.
Exactly right. Yeah, it's funny how that all comes together. I don't know how many times I sit there at the end of the week and I'll plan my full week ahead, pretty much down to the 15-minute interval, basically. And then it would get to 4 o'clock, 4:30 on whatever day of the week. And you go, oh, geez, that's all built up a little bit.
I've just worked till 9 tonight to catch up on all that stuff.
Optimistic, I think.
That's it. And it is a really important lesson, and I still struggle with it. And I'm always, marketers are terrible at following our own advice as well.
Big time, yeah.
Awful at it. But I am always telling people when they're planning to plan for your worst week, not your best, right? So plan for what is going to get achieved, no matter how many other things go wrong in the background and client emergencies or, something breaks or whatever else, your kid gets sick, all these things that life throws at you. So kind of plan for, okay, if it's a really bad week, what can we still get done? And then make sure those are the most high priority items.
That's a great idea.
And then everything after that is just a bonus, right? Then you're like, God, look how great and far ahead I am. And then next week, the world's burning down and you don't get as much done, but at least you're kind of still in that.
You still hit those top priority markers.
Yeah.
That's a great way of thinking, because how many times do we say, we're going to post a blog post every week, we're going to post 7 times on social media, we'll do a video onto YouTube, all of these different things. And then
life.
A life comes in, the meeting pops up that you didn't know that we're going to have, and this person over here has got a problem with another person in the team, and it all blows up. And like, geez, I guess the Friday, Saturday, and you go, geez, well, we didn't get that blog post up. We didn't get the YouTube video up. We only posted the socials once, and it was a story, not even a post.
We did not nail it this week.
We did not nail it.
Yeah.
We did not nail it. But if you can say that, look, we're going to make sure we get that blog post done, and then if we can get 2 posts of socials, that's a great week.
Yeah.
Anything better than that is fantastic. That's probably a pretty healthy way to look at it.
I think it is. I think it is a healthier way to look at it, and it does take the pressure off everybody running around always trying to stay on, and you can only maintain it for a certain amount of time, and then it does fall apart, and then you feel like you're failing, and that's a terrible feeling as well. So give yourself a bit of freedom to still feel like you're winning, even though, maybe you didn't get the complete ideal set of circumstances. You still get to the end of the week and go, okay, good, I did that, and that was the one thing that I absolutely had to get done this week. Yeah.
It's funny, in marketing, we're always looking at the psychology of the customer. Mm-hmm. It's like sometimes we've got to play on the psychology of ourselves.
That's exactly it, right? We have to turn that lens inwards occasionally. And again, it is a little bit uncomfortable sometimes, but yes, it's a really valuable exercise. I was chatting to somebody the other day. She's starting her own marketing business, and she was talking about her positioning. And I said, well, I'm just going to give you the advice that you would give your own customers. You just have to really figure out who you're for and then what you stand for, and live and die by that in everything that you do. And I said, once you are comfortable in that space, you just have to pick a lane and be really comfortable there. And I said, I know it's hard because when you're starting out, you don't want to do that, right? Yeah. You want to be so open to everything and everyone because you're scared that you're going to lose out on business. And even though we know that's not the right thing to do, we all still, when we're...
Oh, definitely. At the start, we all did the same thing.
I will take any business if you want to give it to me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So, yeah.
That's probably, in a way, it is kind of the right thing at the start.
It
Definitely,
can be.
at the start, because you've got to find your feet. You've got to find, particularly in a marketing side of things, where marketing is so broad, you've got to figure out where is your individual skill set or your team's individual skill set best suited. And then is that target market that you're serving there actually the one that you can get the best results for?
Yeah.
It's great to say we work across here, 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 and here, but realistically, maybe out of those 4, you're best suited to serve maybe 1, possibly 2 of those industries or target personas.
Yeah.
And identifying that is not only beneficial for you as the business, as the agency, but also for the client, because then they actually get far better results because you know exactly who you're talking to. You can put yourself in their shoes, and you've done it 100 times before as opposed to 20 times before.
That's it. And when you start speaking their language, everyone gets a lot more comfortable. That's a really important part, and it's so often missed in the early kind of strategy phase where we start looking at demographics and we get really obsessed with the demographics because they're really easy to kind of get a hold of, right? You're looking at gender and age range and location and those kinds of things. And it's the other side of it is so important, right? You need the moment of, oh, these guys get it, right? And that's their emotional drivers. That's the things that maybe they want but they don't say out loud. And you have to find those things as well. And that's where it actually gets really interesting. And that's where messaging gets so powerful. And if you don't have that, if you're just talking to CMOs in their 40s, female CMOs in their 40s, you're never going to get there, right? That's never going to resonate in a way that, you know, when you're talking to somebody who is drowning in dashboards and is managing a team and is just praying that next month, this bean from last month starts showing a return, you know, that's an entirely different conversation.
Yeah, 100%. And there's no use, here's a hypothetical situation, right? There's no use if you're selling PA services to someone, right? Mm-hmm. And, you know, all right, we're going to target Sally, who's a 42-year-old CEO. She's got 3 kids. All 3 kids are in primary school. They play sport outside of school hours. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're going to target. It's like, yeah, perfect. You tick those demographic boxes. Amazing.
Yeah.
But how is Sally actually feeling? She's running a business. She's a CEO. She's got 3 young kids. That's already chaos enough on its own. Mm-hmm. Plus they go and play sport. So she needs someone to go and pick up the kids, or she needs to find time to go and pick up the kids from school, take them to the sport, do all of this. She has to make them dinner still. She has to go and take them to school. Then she gets the call at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Hey, Jack's just been hurt at school. He needs to get picked up because he's got a cut in his leg. You know, like, she's stressed out. She's got no time. So you need to address those things. And that's where the psychographics come into play.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is often, so much of it comes down to time. So people are time poor, or finances. There's financial decisions, or status, right? That's a lot of the time it just comes down, when you really boil it down, it is those things. But then it's just, like you say, finding the right words that's going to really resonate with that person. And, you know, I'm not even sure that naming them is the best way to go, like CEO Sally and things like that I always find quite funny. I'm just not sure how this is, I'm not sure this is the most helpful way of visualizing it, but it's very common, and I'm sure it does work in some cases. But yeah, I think it is to be careful with that one. Yeah.
So psychographics, that's one of my favourite areas, particularly when it comes to video, because it's very hard to target a demographic in a video outside of perhaps casting a person that looks similar to your intended target market. But psychographics are far easier to kind of bring together, and you've got a whole different range of facets that you can target them with. So you can target them through the colors on the screen to make them feel a certain mood. You can reinforce that through the music or the sound effects, make them feel a bit more happier, a bit perkier, or if you want to make them feel a little bit uncomfortable or guilty, or all these kind of feelings. You can change that through what's happening through sound, through colors, and then what people are saying potentially as well, and then how they act, how they move as an individual. So the questions that come before all of that, that's very much the tactics, as we were talking about earlier. That's the tactic of what you're going to do to transmit that message. Mm-hmm. But then going up to that higher level, it's how do we need them to feel? When do we want them to feel it? Like, in terms of what stage of that sales cycle, the customer journey are they on? Is this a piece that's going to be very early in that journey or towards the end? Once they've had that feeling, they've felt those emotions, then what do we want them to do with that? What action do we want them to take? Yeah. These are all the questions that are being asked, but it comes back to the psychographics. So, Felicity, in your work, how are you targeting the psychographics? And whilst demographics are important to a degree, kind of stepping back from those and saying, look, that's great. Sally, 42, the CEO with 3 kids at school, is fantastic, but how do we jump into the psychographic side and understand how Sally's actually feeling?
Yeah, and I think that's in that early stage, and it is really interesting, and a lot of it comes down to talking to the customers, and that's something that, especially small businesses, right, they have so much power at their fingertips because they're so close to the actual customers, and all you have to do is sit down and talk to them, do a couple of, you know, sort of casual interviews, and let them talk about why they chose you or what they were feeling at the time, and just make it very conversational. And if you do that even 5 times, you will find that there is underlying sort of similarities between what people are feeling. And you just have to give people license to freely share, and they will a lot of the time. And that's your best source of of digging into those psychographics. Like you say, it's it's just letting the people tell you how they feel, because people will do that, especially if you've got long-term customers that you're really comfortable with. You could put them in a group setting even sometimes and let them talk about it. That does change the dynamics a little bit, though. You have to be a little bit careful with the group settings. And also you have to be a little bit careful because sometimes they will tell you what you want to hear.
Yeah.
So, sometimes a few leading questions and things as well can really help. But I do find that is always the best way to kind of understand your customers, and talk to your sales team. If you have a sales team, I know marketing and sales tend to butt heads occasionally. It's not always the most relaxed sort of relationship at times. Can I have a one-pager at 4:30 on a Friday? No, you can't. But they also do have a huge amount of insight into the customers, and a lot of businesses will have a CRM system, right? Your customer relationship management. The sales team won't put half of what they know about that customer in that platform. They will put in what they think is necessary, and marketing and sales will have very different ideas on what's necessary information, because they don't always understand why you want to know these things. They're like, why is that even important? And it's like, well, next time I go to create a landing page or something and I have to design a message that talks directly to this customer profile, understanding their whole thought process behind it is so valuable. So yeah, talk to your sales team, dig out as much information from them as you possibly can, and talk to your customers. Those are the two easiest ways to sort of get a handle on what people are really feeling.
It's interesting how sometimes those harder questions to ask are the ones that need to be asked, right? You think back to getting a business started up. So many times it's recommended, go and find 150 people, in a B2C setting particularly, go and find 150 people that could be customers for this and get them to pre-sign up and say, yeah, I'm interested. And then that's the first 150 people that you hit once you sign up. And that, you've got good concepts then with 150 people interested. Mm-hmm. But it's going to have those 150 conversations, which stops people.
Yeah.
In your example there, go and talk to 5 customers that you've had to find out what they were feeling at the time before they found you, why they chose you, why they stayed with you, hopefully for a number of years. Just asking those questions and saying, hey, could we have a chat? 10 minutes. 10 minutes, just nice and relaxed. Just want to understand a few things around your thought processes. People are reluctant to do it.
Yeah, there is that element. Yeah. People do get nervous about it, and especially if you're dealing with enterprise. So you might be a small business and you have enterprise clients, and they have so many rules and regulations that then they get really nervous about what they can and cannot say, and things have to go through levels of approval, and it can be really tricky. I would say one of the best things you can do right from the beginning is obviously just develop a really good relationship with the customers as much as possible. And even when it is a little bit painful to do it, it's one of the most valuable things that you're ever going to do. So just persevere through it. And, we all have things in our jobs that we don't really love doing, right? No one loves all parts of their job. You have the parts that you just kind of make yourself do. And if it's one of those, you've got to realise that it's worth it and make yourself do it.
Sales and marketing.
Oh, yeah.
The dichotomy of those two is... Yeah, I think it's getting better.
I think it is getting better.
Yeah.
I think it is. And I think there's a lot of... there's a lot of crossover now, and I think we could use a little more empathy for each other.
Yes.
I think the more empathy we have for each person, because they're under a lot of pressure, right? And a lot of them are working on commission, and
which would not be easy.
No, I would really struggle with that. It is a tricky relationship, because sales and marketing are actually very, very different disciplines, and marketing, a lot of what we do is building in the background so that in 6 months' time, it's much easier for you. So you're going to get better leads, they're going to be better quality, you're going to close faster because we've kind of pre-qualified and we've put out so much information. But at the time when they are under pressure from the managing director or the CEO and they've got to get some sales in, they don't care about your 6-month plan, right? So it's kind of finding that balance as well where, okay, I need you guys to be patient with me, and then I will do these things that we can maybe speed up right now, but not all of it will be effective. So it's sort of a very much a, like I said, empathy for both sides of it, and trying to find that, that happy middle ground between you can't wait 12 months for everything you do to take effect, but you also can't just, it's not a tap you turn on and off as well.
Yeah.
Right.
It's tricky because, as you're saying, sales is the here and now. It needs to happen now. And they themselves, as salespeople, could be working 3 months, 6 months, in some cases, multiple years to try and get a client over the line, right? Like, there's many occasions where that would be a relevant thing. Yeah. And they've got to be patient there. But marketing is very much, well, good marketing anyway, in my opinion. Good marketing isn't the here and now. It is the 6 months' time. It is in the 12 months' time. And you have to be patient yourself as the marketer, or if you're working for managing director, CEO, whoever it may be, they need to be patient with you to say, okay, look, we'll put the investment in now to reap the rewards in 6 months, 12 months. And we know that we're not going to be able to report on those results over that time period necessarily, because sometimes it can be tricky to gauge. What are your thoughts on that?
I would say you can report on it along the way. So leads and sales are lagging indicators, right? They're going to come later. But there is a whole bunch of other things that you measure along the way when you've planned it out so that you know things are working. Are we hitting the right target market, right? Is the audience growing? Are people spending more time digging through the consideration content on the website? So I would say find those metrics that are going to help you assess the progress along the way so that you know you're building towards those lagging indicators rather than just kind of a hit and hope. So I think as marketers as well, we have to be really accountable for the numbers and we have to get really comfortable with them so that when we go into a meeting and they say it hasn't happened yet, you say, yes, I know, but this has happened and this has happened and this will be the next step in that process. And I kind of have a rule with the metrics. So it's kind of like a 1-3-5.
1-3-5.
1-3-5. So you have one objective that you're trying to achieve, right? Just focusing on that one objective. And then you might have 3 metrics underneath that are telling you you're getting there. You know, it might be impressions, it might be audience, it might be page, like time spent on the page, could be, you know, there's a whole list of things that it could be. So you kind of pick 3 of those things that are really strongly indicating that you're on the right path. And then for those, you will have 5 levers that you could pull if you are seeing that it's not working, right? So you
if it's not working.
If it's not working, right? So you don't wait 6 months and then go, well, that didn't work, we'll start again. So you can track this along the way and then you can say, okay, this is working, brilliant, leave it to do its thing. Or you might test a few other things, see if you can bump it a little bit. Or you might say, this is not working, we're not going to get there in 6 months. What do we need to do? And that might be your messaging. It might be your placement. It might be, you know, there are multiple levers that you can kind of pull. And the trick is just to pull one at a time.
One at a time and try and test.
test what's making the difference. So yeah, one objective, 3 metrics that are going to kind of show you what's tracking, and then 5 levers that you can pull to move those metrics if you need to. And that's, yeah, and then you do that along the way so that you've got something to show for it, and it kind of increases your credibility as well, right? Because you are tracking things, you do understand the process, you do know that we are going to get there, and then hopefully it works out. But again, if it doesn't, we have to own that.
Yeah, definitely. The interesting thing there is it's a 3-level stage again, right? So 1-3-5, plan, strategy, tactics, right? It's all in 3s. It's a commonality across marketing, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think human nature as well. We struggle that's, part of human psychology. We actually struggle to register more than 3 things at once. So if you go past that and start hitting 4 or 5, we actually kind of tap out and it becomes cognitive overload. So I think that's, that's really common, especially in crisis communications and things as well. They'll give you 3 points to focus on, and that's it. Because, anyways, we kind of lose track. So I try to stick to that as well when I'm designing things and marketing plans for other people, that don't get distracted. Just focus on what's really important.
So is it the same for messaging? I suppose, like, if you're going to create a landing page on a website, have 3 core messages that you want to push?
So when I design messaging frameworks, I would have 1 core message. So this is the thread that goes across everything that you do. And that's quite important to kind of reiterate the core of what you're offering and why you're offering it. And then have 3 kind of pillars that
3 pillars
sit underneath that. And then from there, I would work through sort of supporting angles underneath those pillars, right? Because when you give people a messaging framework, if you give them a core message and some pillars, it becomes very hard for them to see past that a lot of the time. If they're not copywriters and they're not natural marketers, they can end up just repeating the same things again and again and again and again. And that becomes, you sound a bit like a broken record. So you go down just that little stage further and do those supporting angles so that you've got different ways of saying the same thing. So that core message is still there. You're still reinforcing it very clearly, but you're not just parroting the same thing again and again and again.
Sure. Okay, so let's run that kind of framework through a bit of a hypothetical exercise here. So let's say it is, what would you say is your core target market, as opposed to just I was going to say like an ice cream truck example, but let's let's make it a bit more relevant to you.
I like the ice cream truck, but yeah, okay. So my core target market is small to medium businesses. They are turning over somewhere around, 5 million plus, maybe got a couple of staff, and most of the time have been in business for a good few years and have built something, and then just need to kind of got to that stage where they need to take the marketing to another level if they want to keep growth.
Sure. And any specific industries or B2B, B2C?
Yeah, I work mostly with B2B these days.
Yep.
Yeah. I do find B2C can be very... I love B2C in some ways. E-commerce in particular is very fascinating, but it does tend to be very tactical and very right now, and I kind of like the nuance that comes with B2B.
Sure. Okay, so let's say B2B, we're going to say this company's pretty well established, definitely over 5 million in revenue there. They've got a small team, perhaps a few sales reps in there as well, and their primary service is offering software to another B2B business. Okay. That software is all to do with improving the reporting of customer data. So you could call it a CRM to an extent. What's that framework? We go 1, 3, 5 and we break that down. Let's say their core objective is in 12 months' time, they want to quadruple their clientele. Okay. Right? That's their big bold objective, goal. Bold objective, right? Mm-hmm. So if we break that down 1, 3, 5, and then simultaneously with that, what kind of messaging needs to be associated with all of it?
Okay. Wow, that's like...
Big question.
That's like a lot in one go. Hold on. Okay, so they're quadrupling their revenue.
Quadrupling revenue.
Okay, so the first thing that you have to do is actually design that goal properly, right? So we have to look at... And there's going to be more numbers in here than people like to think there is. But we're going to have to go back and say, okay, so what is your revenue now? How much has that grown over the last 12 months? And then kind of work backwards from there. Because if you are going to quadruple that, are you going to spend more money? Are you going to develop a new feature in the product? Have you got a new partnership starting? Like, what's the thing that's going to change to support that, right? And that's going to have an effect on your messaging as well. especially if you're, right, we're launching a new partner program and we're going to have to take that into consideration when designing that messaging. So there's actually formulas for this stuff, and it's very, I would like to say easy. It's kind of like when you do it a lot, you get kind of used to it, right? But you will have things like, this is what we do, this is who it's for, this is why it matters, right? And that's really important. And that will come across in your messaging, right? And your core message is basically a little template of all the insights and understanding that you've pulled together in those early stages. And the big part of that is why the customers care, right? Because it's not about your quadrupled revenue. They don't care. That could not be less relevant to your customers'
You
lives.
mean they don't care?
They do not
What?
care.
Really?
No one cares about your revenue
They
goals.
don't care that I want to increase it by 4?
No, no, they really
Just
couldn't
not very
care less.
considerate, are they?
I know, that's it. People are just so rude. They're really only in it for themselves. So you have to,
Jeez.
you have to strip
What a
it back.
bummer.
I know. It's always upsetting. No one just wants to give me jobs that are fun to do because I like to do them. No, it really it doesn't really work like that. So yeah, that's the key as well. Is in that formula is that why should they care? Right, what is in it for them? And when you can find what you want as a business and what your customers actually care about, if you can find the little overlap in the middle, that's where the magic of marketing actually starts working, right? So there's a really common example of that is Netflix, right? They wanted more stable revenue and people wanted to stop paying late fees on their DVD rentals or whatever else it was. And basically that's how the streaming model was born. They kind of found that overlap. They were like, right, well, what if we just give them a small monthly fee and then they have access to all of these things? So yeah, it is that delicate balance of finding the overlap and then designing everything around that.
Okay, so going back to our little hypothetical business here, let's say they're doing 10 million in revenue right now, past financial year. The previous year they had been doing 5 million, so they doubled in that 12 months. And now they're saying, right, for the next 12 months we want to quadruple, so we want to go from 10 to 40. So you were asking questions there around the revenue figures and the clientele.
Yeah.
So based with that new information,
So how
what would you say? What would you ask them?
I would be asking them how they doubled it. What did you do in the last 12 months that doubled it? Was this just a natural progression because you put in so much work in the first 5 years that all of a sudden it doubled because you got referrals or, upsells or all these other things that happened? Or did you start a new campaign? Did you do a whole bunch of sponsorships? What sort of changed in that 12 months to get you there so that then we can look at, okay, well, that definitely works. How do we double down on that and push it even further rather than just sort of creating things, which you can do. But if you've got something there, especially if you've already got some, like you say, some growth or really strong growth, understanding where that comes from and how you double down on it is going to be way more effective than me going, I think you should do this because it's so cool and it's going to look so great and, we're going to spend millions of dollars on sponsorships and then in 2 years it's all going to magically turn into new customers. It's like, well, is that going to be the best way forward? Or actually, we just dropped $40,000 a month into Google Ads and just started kicking the competition's ass. And you're like, okay, well, cool, let's do that. Then you start looking into all sorts of other numbers about search impressions and all the other things. But yeah, it really comes down to there's no one right answer, right? It is for every business, and it is really about understanding the core of that business and who they are and how they've gotten to where they are, and then going from there.
So I guess the understanding out of that very, very unthought through hypothetical example is that there's so many questions that need to be asked, right? Like it's not just a silver bullet approach where this is what you do, this is the result you get. It is very much, this is the situation you're in now. How did you get to that situation in the first place? What did you do to get to that situation? Where do you want to move to? And is what you've done previously the same steps to get you to the next part, or do you need to do something different? And why do you need to do something different?
And how much are you going to invest in this? And what's the lifetime value? Especially for SaaS, right? If you're looking at software, if you are doing the really basic calculation on your lifetime value versus your customer acquisition costs. And if you're, 1 to 4 is like a good number, that's a really happy ratio. But if you are, much higher than that, you are under investing, right, in the long term. So there's all sorts of things that you can look at to kind of help you make those decisions along the way. But I won't nerd out too much on on the numbers.
So Felicity, earlier on, we were talking about how you've got the plan, the marketing strategy, and then the executing of that, which is the tactics. And you made a really good point around how often the people building the plan are also the same people actually executing on those tactics. So they're in the depths of it every day in the trenches. But then there's that gap in the middle, which is the strategy piece. And so often the strategy is what's overlooked. If I look into what we do with video, the front is all about the execution, and the client just wants to get straight to the filming side of it. And it's like, let's film, let's edit, let's get these videos out. And that's all execution. But what needs to come before it is the strategy. And it is those kind of questions I was talking about earlier with the psychographics. It's why are we targeting these people? How do we need to target them? How do we need to make them feel? What do they need to hear? Sound, colors, etc. All these kind of questions. But that comes first in that strategy piece. So with that knowledge that so many plans are built by those doing the execution, do you see there's a bit of a gap sometimes when it comes to strategy?
Yes, definitely. And I think the other problem is as well is that you will have a strategy and you can pay for a strategy, right? And the strategists have come in and they've asked you all the questions and have developed, this is your messaging, this is your channels, all those sorts of things. And then no one really knows what to do with that, right? So the strategy is kind of there, but then there's no bridge to take that to the execution, right? And there are a lot of decisions still to be made in between those two phases about what gets done and what gets done first, like we were saying about planning for your worst week, right?
Yeah.
So where does that sit? What absolutely has to happen for us to build towards our goals? And there is a really big disconnect between strategy and execution, executing the tactics. And I think you're right as well. And because of that, people start to think, well, strategy doesn't really matter because what are we even doing with it?
Sure.
So then they just skip it entirely.
If everyone else is skipping it, why don't we skip it?
Why are we even paying for this? It costs thousands of dollars. And then they skip it and they go straight to the planning the tactics, right? Because they just want to get something done. It's very... there's a dopamine hit, right?
Oh, big time. Time.
Of feeling like we achieved something and we did this. And then, so it is really dangerously common to just skip it all, get something happening and then learn on the fly, which you can do. You will learn things. Sometimes it will even work. But it will be an expensive lesson most of the time, especially modern marketing, right? There's so much digital. It's so easy to just get going and get stuff happening and pushing it out. And then all of a sudden you've spent, again, thousands and thousands of dollars and you can't really tell what you got for that other than you got loads of impressions.
Yay!
Go team.
Looks good on the dashboard.
It really does. Yeah.
How many boardrooms would have seen that and had those conversations? Oh, look at the impressions we got. Oh, man, where's the sales?
Wait, when do they come? And it's like, maybe later, maybe not. It's hard to say. Half of our impressions were in the United States and India, and we don't do any work there. So, there's that as well.
But the real got a million views. So we went viral.
Went viral.
It's great.
That's a funny one, actually, the whole let's go viral. I'm sure you get that a lot with video, right?
Yeah.
They're like, we want to go viral. And I'm like, why? Why do you want to go viral? What's the point of this? Or, it's like, yes, guys, you sell wholesale staplers or something. It's going to be a tricky ask.
Big time.
For us to go viral. We're going to have to get pretty creative there. Unless you've got the warehouse team doing a dance, a TikTok dance, we're gonna struggle.
It's a funny question, the let's go viral one, because in some circumstances, depending on the product, depending on the goal, the objectives, all that, it can be a good thing to go viral.
Yeah.
But I would say probably more often than not, it's a disadvantage to go viral. And I'll give 2 examples on both fronts there. So, and they both come from the same client. they've had some huge results in the past 24 months with what I've done for them, which is fantastic. And it's not just on the social media front, but it's actually translated into their organisation as well, which is a tick of the box. Amazing. Because social media is one thing, but you need the actual growth in the business. Fantastic. One of their videos that we did for them got, I think it was 9-10 million views, something like that. Fantastic. At that point when that one got that many views, it was the highest viewed video that they've ever had done. But it shifted their audience online so much from that video. It went from roughly, I'm going to say, 65% male, 35% female, and it pushed it all the way. I think at the most extreme, it would have been 80-20 towards male. Mm-hmm. And for this client, it's important that it's a bit more towards a 50-50 balance. They know that it's going to be mostly male more than female, but getting it as close to that 50-50 is a good objective for them. But it changed it because it went 15% swing just from this one video, right? And it's like, okay, well, yeah, it was good. It got the views for them. And from a commercial standpoint, it's great for their sponsors to have that many eyeballs, but it just shifted that demographic. So then it was, okay, well, now we've got to just implement a few strategies around and then tactics for that to just kind of bring that back to a bit more of that equilibrium, closer to 65-35, however that may look, which was achieved bit by bit. It took time, but it was able to be done. So that's an example of where going viral and not necessarily is a good thing. Yeah. Then a completely opposite side of things. I posted about this on LinkedIn recently. So at the store gift last year, Gout was running, right? Teenage sensation, one of the fastest kids in the world, could be better than Usain Bolt potentially, right? Mm-hmm. Everyone's eyes are on him. And so this was huge for the sport, for the client. And we said, well, we've got to take advantage of this situation somehow, right? Got to get some eyes on the sport. And so myself, team, we sat back and we said, right, well, what are we going to do to take advantage of this? And we knew from doing the work that we've done with them, there's certain reels that we would produce for them, videos that would do better than others. Yeah. And these are the metrics you look into. You want to understand, why does that one do better than another one, right? And so we said, all right, well, this concept of having a drone footage of a race does really well. People love watching it. It consistently is what gets the views. So I said, well, that's our vehicle to market. We'll do that video. We'll leverage the publicity of this incredible young athlete that people all around the world know about, not just in Australia, all around the world. And we'll bring those together and hopefully that will just take off, right? But take it one step back. Why did we want that to happen? Yeah. Right? Why? It's one thing to say, yeah, we'll go get the views, but why do we want that to happen? Well, we wanted more eyes on the sport. They just signed up a new commercial partner probably, I want to say 8 weeks prior. So we wanted to have that commercial partner be blown away, like, wow, we've got all these views on our...
Can't believe how great this is going.
Right. Yeah. What better way to introduce yourself into a new partnership, right? Yeah. So we wanted that, but then we also wanted the exposure in the media. We're thinking this is a great opportunity. The sport normally gets media attention in just local country newspapers, that kind of thing. Let's try and get this national, potentially international, right? And now 12 months later, it's almost Easter time again. 12 months later, across the 3 platforms that video was posted onto, it's gotten over 35 million views.
Wow.
Right? Massive.
That's massive, yeah.
It hit pretty much every news outlet in the country. Overseas news picked it up. This video is everywhere. If only I could get royalties for the drone shot. I mean, I wouldn't even need to be doing this episode today.
You'd be on a beach somewhere drinking Mai Tai. So,
I'd be back. Yeah. Chill if only it works that way. And then international governing bodies of the sport were like, hey, can we collaborate on it? Like, fantastic, right? Brilliant outcome. Yeah. Sponsors happy, clients happy. Athlete membership fingers are up, entries are up, got more people eyes on the sport. Win-win situation.
Yeah.
And so that's where it's an example of going viral is a great thing.
That's it. That's where it has a purpose.
It has a purpose. But we had to ask the questions. It wasn't just the thing of, let's get the views and just sit back and be like, hey, we got the views. Great job, guys. How does it translate?
Yeah.
And when we had those questions and we had those thoughts and we put the strategy into it, not only did the outcome get achieved through the views, it translated back to the organisation, which is fantastic.
Yeah. And when you did that, did they go, was it all organic? Was
All organic. There was no paid
promotion or
behind
anything?
it. No,
Yeah.
all organic.
That's amazing. Yeah. That's really hard to do.
It's very hard to do.
Yeah.
And I can't say that we would do that for every single one, because that would be tough, and you can't control organic at the end of the day.
No.
Right? You have to know roughly the ballpark you're sitting in.
Yeah.
But ultimately it's up to
You can give
other
it
people.
You can give it the best possible chance, and then
Exactly
it really
right.
does come down to, I mean,
There's so many factors.
it's not even really algorithms, it's people, right?
People. Well, that's what an algorithm is, right? It's people.
It is. It really comes down to what the people are seeing and engaging with. But yeah, that's two sides of that coin, right?
Yeah.
Like, can we go viral? Possibly, but why do we want to?
But
is
why?
a better
Why
question.
is the question. Why?
Yeah.
You know, I remember back as a young kid, Peppa Pig, right? George Pig, he's always like, why? He's always asking why.
That was a great. Please tell me that's going to make it into this.
That is going in.
I love
Everyone's
that.
hearing that right now.
Okay, great. Yep.
Everyone needs to ask why more. Right?
Yeah.
It's the questions. Why are we doing this?
And
why are we targeting them?
And you're right. And I sometimes feel like I sound like a toddler, because
Yeah.
I am always, why? Why do you want that? Why are we doing that? Why did this work? Why did this happen? And I'm sure it's very annoying. But probably not quite as annoying as Peppa Pig, but like, but it is really, you have to keep doing it, and you have to be comfortable being that person, right? If you're going to be in this industry, and you have to be comfortable sort of almost annoying people a little bit to get to the, there's that old game you do, like ask why 5 times. Even with messaging, sometimes you keep asking why, because quite often, especially with tech products and things like that, they'll give you features to work with, and you have to go, why is that feature important? And then they'll say, because of this. And, well, why? Because of this. Why? Because of this. And by the time you get to the 5th why, you've actually got the core of what the customer is going to care about. Yeah. But getting to that 5th why without someone telling you just to go, it's a delicate process.
But I find clients, they kind of trust you more if you do ask those questions.
Yeah.
Great example. I was on a sales call probably 8 months ago, thereabouts, and the prospect was saying, we've got a strategy and a plan to do this over the next 12 months. And it was different to what we were kind of going in for. And I said, look, I'll be completely honest with you. We've had a client in the exact same situation as what you are right now, and they were doing pretty much what you were planning to do in the next 12 months. And we told them, just scrap it, forget about what you're doing, do this instead. Mm-hmm. And this was the result that they were able to achieve. And you could see that it was on a Zoom call, and you could see them sitting there, and they were like kind of questioning it a little bit. At first, they were probably, dagger through the heart kind of thing, like, geez, you're killing this project.
Yeah, don't kill my baby.
Yeah,
I'm just so excited about this. Right? Yeah.
And then I said what I said, and then they paused for a bit, and they said, look, I'm actually really, really pleased you're upfront and honest about that, because you've had the experience of it. That actually makes me trust you a lot more. And I was like, well, thank you. I appreciate that first and foremost. But this is why having those hard conversations and asking those questions is important, because why are you doing that when really you don't need to do that? You should be doing this instead.
I am a shocker for that as well. I call myself the Grinch who stole Christmas, because people will come to me and they'll be so excited and they've got a great idea, and quite often it's advertising related, and they'll say, right, we're getting really great leads through Google, and we're going to do Google ads, okay? And this will be, I could probably think of like 60 times throughout my career where this has happened, and I have said to them, okay, well, can I model it for you first? What are you thinking of spending? What's your budget? And they'll go, I'm going to spend $750 a month. And I'm like, okay, that's going to be really tricky. And you go back and you explain why it's going to be like So I can take a retainer on that, right? And I can run those for you, and I can monitor it all and everything else. The results are always going to be really erratic unless you're in a very, very unique industry. That's just not going to be enough money to make anything happen. And it can be right up to, sometimes it can be thousands of dollars you're planning to spend. And when you actually look at it and you realise how much other companies are spending on those terms, it's not going to be enough. And you have to be really honest about it. And you have to say, please don't do this for these reasons. And then I'm shooting myself in the foot in some ways, because it's like I'm giving up business to do that. But at the end of the day, there has to be so much honesty and mutual respect for the relationship to work long term. And for me, because everything we do takes a long time when you're doing it properly, right? You have to have that trust. It's so important. And if it's not there and they feel like you're just taking money for doing nothing, it's going to be, you're just going to churn. It's just going to be constantly trying to find new clients because they're always going to leave. And even when you're inside the business, which I did do a lot of sort of in-house work as well, you have to keep that really honest, and this is what you can actually get. I know this is what you want, but this is what you can actually get for your budget.
Yeah.
You know?
And be realistic, be honest with it.
Be really honest with it. And then, like I say, own it either way. Either it works and, you give yourself a high five and now you can say, let's increase based on these results, or it didn't work and these are the reasons why. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It's builds so much better relationships and better marketing and better results for everybody if you can just be really honest.
So what would you say is the number one mistake that brands are making when it comes to their marketing?
Looking for immediate results, right? Looking for the dopamine hit of the digital marketing and not planning properly in the background, not doing the strategy, going straight to that stuff. That's just, it's universal. It's so common. It's actually really unusual to see somebody have a strategy and then have planned it out and then have the results come in based on that. So yeah, that's the big one, I think, and it will be for a while.
Here's a scenario I'll put to you. We talked about sales and marketing and how there can be a bit of disagreement.
Love hate.
Love hate. I recall listening to a podcast of a marketer, probably would have been over 12 months ago now, and he was posed the question of, how do you know your marketing's working versus how do you know your sales is working, right? Mm-hmm. And he said, well, think about this. You can put out a campaign as a marketer and you could do a fantastic job of driving people to your website. But then someone goes to purchase, let's say it's an e-commerce scenario, they go to purchase and the cart function doesn't work, right? So then you look back at the reporting and you say, well, this marketing did a fantastic job because it drove people to the website, but we didn't get any sales out of it. And people go, they scratch their head. Why did that not happen before, right? Because there was a sales problem, because the cart was not working properly. The marketing was great, but we don't see the marketing translating into sales because there was a sales problem, which is the shopping cart was not working properly. So how often do you see great marketing take place but be let down by sales? And then vice versa. Have you seen a scenario where sales is doing a great job, but marketing's not there to back them up and make them excel?
Yeah, I think both things definitely do exist. It's usually just a disconnect, right? A misalignment within the business. And I think when you silo everything and the teams aren't talking to each other and aren't working closely together, that's where either side of those problems kind of come into play. So the more, I hate the whole sales and marketing alignment workshops and stuff like that. I always find like I'm not sure how effective those are, but I think when you just work together, if you can just stay in the same room a lot of the time, that will have such an impact on both of those things. And Yeah, sales from an e-com point of view, that one's always interesting because, yeah, I would say cart function, that's a borderline. Whose job is that? Where does that one find? And there is that kind of really thin layer sometimes between what's marketing and what's sales. So it is just definitely about staying connected to each other and to the ultimate goal of the business as well, and making sure that everyone's sort of like, you got to be rowing in the same direction, right? 100%. Like, it just doesn't work if everyone's sort of got one oar and you're all going in circles. Like, that's never going to get you where you want to be. And in a lot of ways, that's the CEO's job, right? Their job is to
having that
make
alignment and direction, and bringing everyone to support that vision.
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely. And that's a funny thing as well, where marketing doesn't want to write your business plan, all right? This I find is quite interesting. I did go to business school. I can write a business plan. I don't want to write your business plan. I want to write your marketing strategy that's going to support your business plan, right? And that's, so if the CEOs and managing directors and all of those people have got the business plan, that's what marketing needs to then design things to support it. And that's the same, and it will come down to, it will have sales in there, right? That strategy and that planning will incorporate the sales functionality. As long as you've got that business goal and you actually know what you're trying to achieve, that's where things can start to really, make progress.
So for those people that have stuck through the episode and they somehow didn't click off after I did a George Pitt impression.
No, I really feel like that's just going to get replayed. But
they've got to here and they're thinking, look, we've got a disconnect between our marketing. We do great on the tactical execution side of things. We've got a vague plan, but we're missing that strategy component in the middle. Before they perhaps look external for some support through someone like yourself, what would you like them to reflect on inside the business at the moment to address that gap that they have?
I would say look really hard at your marketing team's skill set, right? Is there somebody in there who's capable of doing the strategy or not, right? Every marketing team is different. We touched on this earlier. It's really broad. There are a million different ways you can go. Some people are great at performance. Some people are great at brand. Some people are whizzes with Adobe. Some people are not. It just really look at your business first, right? And understand what your team's strengths and weaknesses are, because that's where you'll find probably the gaps will become obvious. It's like, well, we don't actually have anyone who can do that. Or, we haven't given them the bandwidth to take time to do that as well. So that's sort of the first point. And then see, is there somebody there that's capable of filling these gaps? And do we just need to give them the space to do that? Or do we have to go and find somebody that's going to help us kind of get to that stage? And I think, you don't have to go straight to a consultant, but do understand your team's capabilities and then let them play to their strengths as well, because then they will do better work.
Yeah, fantastic. As we finish up, got one final question for you that we finish every episode with.
Okay.
And that question is a bit of a fill the gap kind of question. So a modern brand succeeds when it is willing to what?
When it is willing to put in the time and effort required. It is what it comes down to, is patience and effort. And if you can do that, you will win. That's it.
Yeah, I think that relates to not just growth in a business and seeing it through over the long term, but also relates to marketing, because you've got to be patient and just stick to it and know that you keep ticking off the boxes and you've got this strategy locked in, which is being guided by your plan. You just keep following that, and assuming you've asked all the right questions and you answered them in the right manner, you should see that outcome.
That's it. And if you're tracking and you're feeding back into the loop, then it will compound over time. It is energy and patience. It's hard things to do, easy things to say.
Will be time. Felicity, thank you. It's been phenomenal this morning. I've thoroughly enjoyed learning a bit more about yourself, and I know we're both very similarly aligned in terms of strategy holds such a core component in the success of our clients. And yeah, raising awareness, I suppose is a term you could use for it, is important, because there's, as we've discussed, there's not enough focus on the strategy side of things.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. It was great fun.